Nancy Grace grew up wanting to be a writer. She just happened to become a bona fide TV star by accident. From her rural upbringing in Georgia to becoming the unofficial face of true crime reporting, Grace's rise is truly a rags to riches story. Nancy Grace didn't have a lot of money growing up, but there was a lot of happiness in her home. In an interview with the New York Post, Grace recalled, "I grew up in a very rural area out in the middle of Georgia on a red dirt road with a well dug by my grandfather. The bookmobile would come out to serve the needy people, i.e. us. No one had anything, but we were happy."
I would say it was a traditional Southern childhood.
Years later, Grace would return to her hometown a hero during the promotion of her book, The 11th Victim. Grace's extremely successful career ultimately allowed her to buy a huge residence in Georgia. When the Daily Mail toured her palatial home, Grace told the outlet, "I have so many blessings in life I never dreamed of having." From a young age, Nancy Grace set her sights on having a career in writing. She loved reading William Shakespeare's plays and felt at home when analyzing Macbeth and Othello. Perhaps foreshadowing her future in-law, Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird also topped her list of favorites. Grace's mother, an ex-accountant, and her father, a former railroad worker, often had discussions with young Nancy about her ambitions. By the time she was in high school, it was clear that she would be a writer, so she became an English literature student at Mercer University in Georgia. During a chat with Interview, Grace spoke about her early years at Mercer and said, "I had a concentration in Shakespearean literature, among other things. I wanted to study at the Globe Theatre and write my dissertation on Shakespeare." While it seemed that she was on a fast track toward accomplishing her dreams, one tragic event would lead her in a different direction. When she was 19 years old, Grace was engaged to 23-year-old Keith Griffin. Just when the couple was a few months short of walking down the aisle, Griffin was shot by an ex-coworker. The tragic incident turned Grace's world upside down. However, she found the courage to keep going, albeit with a heavy heart. Grace reflected on Piers Morgan tonight, "It's like breaking your arm and you never get it set, but you learn to flip a pancake or sweep the floor. Not the way you did before, but in a different way." She opened up about how for 3 decades she couldn't see herself becoming a mother or a wife. In fact, Grace would physically shudder whenever the topic of marriage came up. Griffin's killer, Tom McCoy, was ultimately convicted of his murder. 25 years later, Grace was at the office going through fan emails when she came across one that revealed the fate of McCoy. He was released. During an appearance on The Megyn Kelly Show, Grace said that from that moment on, she never kept tabs on the criminal and never knew of his whereabouts.
And would it matter? It won't change anything that happened.
The catastrophic death of her fiancé took a toll on Grace and led to a depressive state full of heartbreak and grief. She said on Piers Morgan tonight, "I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink anything, I lost down to about 89 pounds, dropped out of school, I was at my parents' home, I couldn't stand to hear the TV, the radio in the car, I couldn't stand to hear a clock tick. It was just too much."
It was like a dark swirl after his murder.
Grace eventually left Georgia behind for Philadelphia, where she stayed with her sister. During that difficult period of her life, she knew that her dreams of becoming an English teacher were over. However, she became passionate about finding justice. When she returned to Mercer University, she pursued a law degree. Grace then got a master's degree in criminal and constitutional law at New York University, setting her on the path to becoming a prosecutor. Grace began working in the district attorney's office in Georgia in 1987 and brought numerous cases to trial. During her decade-long career at the DA's office, she never lost a single case. When Nancy Grace was recruited to become a court TV personality, she was paired up with Johnny Cochran. Cochran rose to prominence as one of O.J. Simpson's lawyers during the former NFL star's 1995 trial for the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman.
"If it doesn't fit, you must acquit."
Coincidentally, Grace had given legal commentary on Simpson's case. As such, it was a bone of contention when she and Cochran began working together. She noted on Larry King Live, "I knew Johnny Cochran well because he had all the fame, he had all the charm. I had a hard time at the beginning because every time I looked at him, I imagined Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman lying with their heads chopped off in the front yard." Over time, she eventually became convinced of Simpson's innocence and managed to strike a friendship with Cochran that extended to his family. In 1999, Cochran left his and Grace's TV show to work at a personal injury law firm. On her own, Grace went on to host Trial Heat, which she had begun working on 2 years prior. She told Larry King, "Court TV had me go straight, basically, into the courtroom, and it's a fantastic thing. I do what I love all day. We cover trials live, we interview the people, the players in the cases, we analyze the law." She added that the public was most likely captivated by trials because of their ability to uncover the dark side of humanity, one which is often left untold. However, Grace's run on Trial Heat was brief. She left the show in 2003. In 2005, Grace began her primetime legal analysis show on the HLN network titled Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace eventually made her dreams of writing a book a reality. She published her first book in 2005, Objection: How High-Priced Defense Attorneys, Celebrity Defendants, and a 24/7 Media Have Hijacked Our Criminal Justice System. Speaking on the unethical side of defense law during the promotion of her book at the time, Grace told The Washington Post, "I'm on a search for the truth. I don't really want to have any part of getting guilty people off." In 2009, she published the novel The 11th Victim, the plot of which was inspired by the events of her own life. The book would go on to become a made-for-TV movie starring Jenny Garth. On her HLN show, Grace revealed that she had written the book in between numerous significant life changes. She said, "This was cathartic when I wrote it, since at the time that I began working on it, I still had prosecution running through my blood. The book that I started is very different from the book that I ended up with." Grace's next book, Death on the D-List, was released in 2010. It was followed by 2016's Murder in the Courthouse and Don't Be a Victim: Fighting Back Against America's Crime Wave, which Grace published in 2020. Even though she's helped put plenty of bad guys away, Grace hasn't always been right. In June 2002, 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped from her Salt Lake City residence. A manhunt for the missing teenager was launched thereafter, but nothing came of it. That year, Richard Reese, who was a suspect in the Smart case, died while in police custody. All along, Grace had expressed her belief in Reese's guilt. However, when Smart was found in 2003, it was revealed that she had been abducted by Brian David Mitchell and his wife, Wanda Barzee. Speaking to the Daily Beast in 2020 about the Smart case, Grace said she had a change of heart about Reese. She told the outlet, "Once I listened to his wife speak out on his behalf and give her story, I was very clear that I believed her. That, however, is rarely reported." In 2006, Grace welcomed Smart onto her show, CNN's Nancy Grace, to discuss a bill she was supporting about the National Sex Offender Registry. But Grace first bombarded Smart with questions about what her life was like while she was abducted. Smart was uncomfortable with Grace's questions and told the host, "I'm not here to give an interview on that. I'm here to help push this bill through. To be frankly honest, I really don't appreciate you bringing all this up." By the mid-2000s, Grace's career was going well. However, she was still crippled by the death of Keith Griffin. That changed when Griffin appeared to her in a dream. As Grace noted on the Steve Harvey Show, the duo got together at a restaurant in Penn Station, and it was in the dream that Griffin permitted her to carry on. She woke up afterward and waited until the clock struck 7 a.m. to give an ultimatum to David Lynch, her investment banker boyfriend who was in Atlanta. Their relationship, she disclosed, had been challenged by distance on many occasions. During her appearance on Harvey's show, Grace recalled what she said to Lynch.
I said, "Listen, you're going to either move to New York and we're going to get married and start a family, or we're breaking up."
Lynch ultimately agreed, and in April 2007, they tied the knot in a low-key family affair. Not only was the wedding hush-hush, it was impromptu. Her family had been informed of the upcoming nuptials only 2 days before their big day. After her wedding, Grace had some big news for her fans. She and Lynch were expecting. Toward the end of that year, she welcomed twins, Lucy Elizabeth and John David. In an interview with People, Lynch said, "The babies are doing fine. Our little girl is doing just as well as her brother despite her weight, and Mom is doing great." While Grace is a household name, her children have grown up not knowing all the details about their mom's career. Grace spoke about their upbringing in a 2014 interview on Bethany.
They know I'm on TV. They don't know anything about violence at all, but they don't really get it.
After more than 10 years of working on the HLN network, Nancy Grace eventually left her show in 2016. Grace wrote in a statement, "This fall, I'll be leaving HLN, my longtime TV home, with a full heart and endless gratitude. The network has been my extended family for nearly a dozen years, and I am proud of the amazing work we've produced together." Grace further highlighted the impact her show had on society. Because of her show, victims found a space where they could be heard. A lot of people who disappeared were traced, and many cold cases found their way to the public. Her quest for justice didn't die with her HLN show, of course. 3 years later, she was back with the Oxygen TV series Injustice with Nancy Grace, the first episode of which aired in July 2019. The true crime show ran for 2 seasons and came to an end in December 2020. Decades after she began her television career, Nancy Grace is still a master at her craft. In 2023, she began co-hosting CrimeFeed, an investigation discovery and Max series that covers true crime stories as they happen. Speaking to The Rhodes Show, Grace said her motivation to co-host the show is the same one she has had throughout, giving a voice to the voiceless as she pursues justice. She also serves as the host of the Crime Online podcast, Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Although Grace's many years in the field of crime reporting has earned her a lasting legacy, she doesn't doesn't think too much about it. In an interview with the Daily Beast, Grace said, "I have no concern about a legacy. I have a lot of cases to tackle and many injustices I hope to address before I can consider a legacy."